Hey everybody, this is Tammy and I'm here with Abbi Damron from the high school. Hello
Hello.
Abbi, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good. I am just wanted to talk to you a little bit about Breakout EDU. I know you've done that in your classroom recently, so I just want to ask a few questions so other teachers can get the benefit of you already done it and some of the things that you learned along the way. So can you just start by describing what Breakout is?
Breakout EDU, I feel as I've told my students, it's the escape room meets the classroom. So instead of breaking out, we're breaking out of our brains to try to figure out what's in this box. But in order to do that, we have to use what we've learned this unit and work together as in our small team or small groups to figure out these codes and these locks and what's this clue? Is it really a clue or is it just something trying to distract us? And then we got to get into our box based on that.
Okay, very cool. So did you do the physical or I know there's a digital as well?
We did the physical breakout because my kids
Okay.
are very hands-on. And then I have a few that are pretty smart and they've tried to hack some of my games already that we've done online. So duly noted, challenge accepted. We're going to do
Okay.
some more hands-on things.
Okay. All right. So some people might be thinking, so you're just playing games in your class. So you must have had some content objectives.
We did. We've covered all of our cell organelles. So our content objectives were hitting our prokaryotic, eukaryotic cells. How are they different? How are they similar? And so we're looking at cell organelles, what makes up cells, some of the biomolecules that makes up the cells, as well as we're tapping into some of the history of biology and the introduction of microscopes and what were the important parts in the developments and acknowledgments of how did we get to our microscope and what was found in the microscope, who discovered the microscope, as well as our last section of this unit was our cell membranes and how things are moving through the membranes. So,
Okay. So do you feel like those objectives were met?
yes, yes.
Okay.
In,
Very
in
cool.
addition, there was one part or one clue that I considered it as a stretch goal. We covered it very briefly as part of one of the jobs of one of our organelles in the cell. So I just briefly covered it in class, but it's not something we really dive into until a couple more units. It's cell division. So that clue was a great basis for me to see how many kids were actually with that versus how many just hit it and I have no idea what this means. So that was a good basis for me to see how many have heard of it and actually know exactly what it is because they've either encountered it somewhere else, either in a health class or in their previous science classes or something else all entirely. So
Oh, okay. Sounds great. It's called the four C's of learning: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. Which ones do you think that this activity addressed?
actually, I think it hits all of them because they have to think critically to have to figure out not only where the clues are in the classroom, but then they have to collaborate with each other and work well with each other to kind of communicate what. Okay, well, I'm thinking this, but I can't remember the name. How does I think it starts with this letter, or I know it has to deal with this clue, but I'm not sure on this one. So they're working well with their communication. They have to collaborate with each other to come up with things. And creativity, I feel that may not be the strongest one in this game. However, they do have to be very creative in coming up with the answers and where the clues are even hidden. So they have to be
Yeah.
creative other than, oh, well, I know it's near a water source, so it's got to be the sink. Or it could be the shower since we have to have a shower or the eye wash station. So
That's cool. That's cool.
yeah.
So, how were you able to assess the student learning of the actual content? Did you take a grade?
No. What I did is I kind of walked around and assessed each group as they were working because I had seven, my classes are pretty big. So I had seven boxes that they had to break into. So I had four in each group. And based on the group, I was able to, as I walked around, I could tell where they were in the game. So if they're still stuck at that first level when they're trying to identify the correct organelles based on the description, then I can see, okay, well, let's jog our memory. Which one was the highway of the cell and which one was our power plant and those kinds of things. So I could assess I could assess how quickly they were getting through that part, or maybe if they figured it out and they were already way ahead and they're looking at the cell mitosis and putting all this stuff together. So I can kind of judge it based on where they're at in the game, as well as what kind of questions they're asking each other as and me, because I know there were a few we can't remember how to spell this. And if it's not spelled correctly, then it's not highlighting. We're not getting a color. Well, that's true. We do have to know how to spell it correctly. So then we were able to go back to our notes and look it up in the book, and we were able to find it. So
Okay, very cool. So did any of the students make mistakes along the way? How did they mess up? And when they messed up or failed at something, how did they respond to that?
I had a few that the very first step they had to do it was kind of like a matching with the organelle, and if they didn't spell it correctly, then it wouldn't give them the new code. So several of them had the right term, but it wasn't spelled correctly. So that frustrated some of them because they couldn't figure it out. Or in one aspect, it was a singular version of a plural, or so some had it written in plural and it needed to be singular. So that was something that they were getting hung up on. Is Tira's not working? I don't know. And they were getting frustrated. So that was another aspect. You could see some dealt with stress better than others, whereas some were caving and getting really stressed out and getting angry. So we worked on our respect issues a little bit because some people were kind of really tense with some of their group mates. It's like, okay, now hang on, take a breather. We can do this together. So let them work on it since you're frustrated and you need a break. So we did that a few times.
Well, competition coming out, I understand. So tell us about how much work was involved on your part.
The main aspects of the work was having to print off all the resources and then setting the locks. And I have to admit, the first time you set the locks, it's a little bit intimidating. And I don't know how many times I went back and I almost emailed the Breakout EDU contact because I got most of them all locked, set up, and then I got to the last one and I'm doing something wrong. But I'm at the point now where I've done it so many times, it's like, oh yeah, well, that's how you do this and this is how you do that. So
Okay. So would you say that this activity was worth it, and would you do it again?
definitely. Based on the reaction of the kids, yes, they loved it. In fact, I did it in my law enforcement one class when we were covering verbal communication, and we just did a communication game in the beginning of communication, the early forms of communication, and I had it as their question as one of their bonus questions on their test was, what would you like to do in this class? And I had three of them right in. We want to do more of those breakout games. That was so much fun. And it's like, of all things, law enforcement, okay, we'll do a breakout game. But
That's great.
so they really are enjoying it. And then to bring it into my biology classes, they really did enjoy it. And then I think they just enjoyed it because it was just a different setting versus the, okay, we can take notes, or, oh, we got to go over this and we got to make this. And, oh, now we got to, oh, it's a competition. And then they immediately dial in. So it's pretty neat.
Okay. And so if you were to do this again, can you think of anything that you would do differently?
I had my kids offer up some advice and some of their tips, and they would like to set codes for each group because, of course, when you get some groups that get excited, or I have some students that got excited when they finally solved one of the lock codes, and then sure enough, they announce it to the class, and everybody knows, okay, so that lock is Lynn's. All right. So,
All right.
I had a few kids that are like, well, yeah, if there was a way we could have all done our different codes, and then we could have, made it a little bit more challenging. And then I did have some that offered up to, well, can we create our own game? And those are my normal hackers that I've had issues with hacking some of our games. So it's like, I think we could figure that out. I think that would be an opportunity coming up.
I love that. I love that idea. Just more student led and student created. And I think they actually get more out of it when they do that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Because I feel like they really don't learn it that well, or they're not truly learning it the most, and they have to present it themselves, and they have to think of ways to present it, and how can we make this tricky, but how can we make this message clear and get it through. So
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate all your help.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thanks. Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye.